everyone, to our first of many Coffee and Commerce events. Today, we'll discuss an interesting case study of how Richmond Supply modernized their commerce through replatforming and PIM integration. My name is Dolan, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Customer Relations at StrikeTru. You'll have an opportunity to post questions at the end of our session during our Q&A segment. We'll be recording this session, and it will be sent to all of you after today's discussion. So let's welcome and introduce our speakers for today. So we have with us Vic Gandochu, partner at StrikeTru, Levi Hill, president of Richmond Supply, and James Lee, senior sales engineer at BigCommerce. So what do we have in store today? What we'll be taking you through is discussing the opportunities, the solutions, the results, best practices, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So with that being said, Levi, I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Dolan. And my name is Levi Hill. I'm in Augusta, Georgia. We are an industrial distributor here, a business that has been open since 1942. It's a family business. I'm the third generation owner and operator, and I have a son, so I'm looking forward to handing it off to him. But glad to be with you today, and I'm honored to talk with you about the internet and our web experience. I can offer only my experience, and it's somewhat limited, but I have been involved with this for a long while, probably close to 15 years, 12 years, something like that, where we started to venture into the internet. Our industry as an industrial distributor has been slow to adopt the internet, but it is quickly keeping pace now with many of the other industries and businesses that find a good means to use the web. We have an assortment of products primarily sold to industry, manufacturing, as well as other contractor trades. And so it's a wide assortment of items, many of which can't be shipped easily, but the web has given us a way to advertise our product and promote our business. Our history began with a few little web products that allowed us to build a quick web presence. This was way back before a lot of the current tools are out there now, and we do not have a web department at our company. I have been the primary in-house builder of the product and the one who's focused on trying to get our business on the web. But over the years, we stumbled around a bit with different web platforms, and the most current shift has been from a product called Magento, which is a large web platform. It's an open source web platform, and also a shift to a product information manager called Akeneo, which we've been on for several years. And we engaged with Vic and StrikeTru in an effort to build our content and house our content in this product called Akeneo. And then at a point not too long after that, we were introduced to BigCommerce and were approached about making a shift from Magento to BigCommerce. And for us, as a small company, we really don't want to be tangled up in the technology of the web, though that's exactly what it is. But we really didn't want to be involved with server administration and all of the things that tend to be overhead associated with any web presence. Both Akeneo and BigCommerce and the teams with BigCommerce and Akeneo have afforded us the opportunity to move away from being involved with the technical aspects of server administration and fixing bugs and things like that, and on to really the more important things, which have to do with marketing and search engine optimization and content development and build out. And so we are fairly new to BigCommerce, but have found it to be a platform that really we have no concerns about server administration. Uptime is there. My focus now is on marketing and trying to attract more customers to our website. I feel like even though we've been at this web thing for quite a while, we're still in the very infancy of moving our company ahead on the platform. Both Vic with StrikeTru and James with BigCommerce and others have helped us a lot in seeing how the web deployment can be not such a scary thing, but something that is manageable and easy to deal with in many ways, and also really getting rid of the headaches associated with using your own servers and trying to administer those servers. And so our experience has been a very good one in our recent history with the web and moving to BigCommerce and away from Magento. Magento was a very good platform, but it's a very big open source platform that has a lot of options that really weren't necessary for us. And BigCommerce seems to fulfill everything we need. And we're very happy with where we are now and feel like we can move forward with that and focus our efforts on marketing. Thank you.
Thank you, Levi. Next slide, please. So, hi, this is Vic from StrikeTru, and I'll talk a little bit about more about the opportunity that Levi saw some time ago, and we also uncovered it when we first met with Levi. So, it's another way of saying problem statement, right? So essentially, the whole process of publishing data to the web and also to InDesign, the catalog management system, was a pain in the neck. The data management aspect of the whole e-commerce environment was also very labor intensive. Initially, Richmond Supply was using Catalog Studio, a legacy PIM or a catalog data management tool to produce catalogs. And they were using Magnetron. They're still using Magnetron ERP system. And the process of onboarding product data was manual. Purchasing would set up products in the ERP. Then the marketing team would rekey all that data into the product database. And the process of updating the Magento website initially was a sort of a disconnected process. There were scripts running. There was not much visibility or control over that process. There was a nightly script that would update prices and shipping information, and there were occasional failures, and they would not be detected on time, and that would cause stale data to present itself on the web. And then when it came to content, all the titles and descriptions and copy and images and stuff like that, there was a monthly process that was running, and it was also a multi-step manual process that required the involvement of the agency to make it happen. And if something were to go wrong, which was not uncommon, it had to be redone the next day. So there was no nightly syncs happening of content, or even on-demand sync capability didn't exist. So these were some of the challenges and that we were trying to solve for, so that there was a lot more control, visibility, and speed at which things were to happen to update the e-commerce website. And that's where Levi sought us out, and we came in. And I'm going to talk to you about the solution that we implemented to help with overcome some of these issues. Next slide, please. So the main things that we did for Richmond was we replatformed the two legacy systems, namely PIM system and also the e-commerce system. And in the process, we made the data management process more efficient and modernized it essentially, right? So the time to market was much less than it used to be. And these projects are they're sort of involved and they're not trivial. So you do want to take a phased approach to this, and that's what we did. As Levi was alluding to earlier, we first replaced the legacy PIM system with Akeneo PIM. The legacy PIM system had several challenges. There was only 2 user licenses. There were limits on how many windows could be open, and it was not difficult. It was not easy to add attributes or categories, things like that. And then also the way the data was structured in the old system was not best practice, right? Instead of setting up sizes or links as attributes with multiple values, they were set up as categories, which essentially meant, the front end, the experience was pretty poor for customers when it came time to search and select products. So there were issues with both the tool usability as well as the data itself that was housed in there. So the initial project was replacing that legacy system with a new modern tool, Akeneo PIM. And in the process, we also improved the product data structures. We reorganized the category structure that drives the navigation on the front end. Richmond Supply subscribes to an industry data pool provided by affiliated distributors, a buying group, and they had come up with best practice-based category structures and also rich product data. And we leveraged all of those structures and merged it with Levi's existing product categories to build a better navigation structure. And then we converted all the old data over into the new PIM, and then connected it to Magento and streamlined that whole process of syncing it to the website. What used to be a monthly process and not so predictable became an overnight process and predictable. And the synchronization with Magento also involved product data structure synchronization. So if Levi and team were to add new product categories or new attributes to capture data, or add new reference data, whether it was a list of colors or sizes, things like that, all of that would be synchronized with Magento in an automated fashion. And then the product data and assets or digital assets would also be synchronized. So that was project 1. And it involved about 5 resources on our side. It included project manager, a solution architect, a data architect, and then dev and QA resources. And after that, sometime later, more recently, we replaced Magento with BigCommerce. And that project was made easy by the fact that product data was already centralized in a system, the PIM system. And so the migration was easier than it would have been otherwise. And this project involved 6 resources and the same resources, similar resources, right? Project manager, architect, solution architect, more importantly, a UI UX developer. There was still some data work to be done here in the sense that instead of now connecting to Magento, we're connecting to BigCommerce. So we deployed a data connector. We had to configure that connection and test it and all that. So the data people were still involved. And there was also a little bit of business rule building we had to do to support some requirements from the BigCommerce side. And there was some data cleansing that was involved. So there was some data and also dev and testing people or QA people involved. This project took a little over 4 months. Overall, as a result of these replatforming efforts and content efforts, the big improvements that we see or saw is UI UX improvements, data structure and data enrichment efforts or improvements. A lot of automation built in, especially in the way the data flows, and also provided Richmond with more self-service features than those that existed before. So here's a quick look at the current solution architecture. The product data has been all centralized in Akeneo PIM. StrikeTru has helped onboard new product data from external sources, in some cases using data connectors. And price and availability data is synchronized daily from ERP into the PIM and then from PIM into BigCommerce. product content, price and availability data, as I mentioned, through the connector goes to BigCommerce in a predictable fashion. And both of these feeds can be triggered intraday as well, although Richmond doesn't leverage that feature much. And as I was mentioning, if there are any new product categories or attributes as product data requirements are evolving, if any of those happen, they happen in the PIM and they automatically flow into BigCommerce. And all of this updates to BigCommerce is enabled by StrikeTru's Akeneo PIM connector for BigCommerce. So that's a current solution architecture at a glance. So next slide, please. So if we were to look at the challenges that we solved through this project for Richmond, right? I think one of the big ones is we saved Levi and team a significant amount of precious time that was otherwise spent on tech issues, server management issues, patch updates, security updates, and upgrades and things like that, which were holding up development and growth initiatives. There is improved site functionality. As I was mentioning, there's a lot more that can be done in-house, both through the migration to Akeneo PIM and also through the migration to BigCommerce. And then both of these tools, especially BigCommerce, they come with great support that was sort of missing in the prior architecture. We now have a very reliable site update process for product content. Overall, in taking a step back, we essentially deployed modern tech tools that are much more user-friendly, flexible, and extensible. And along the way, we also made some critical data structure improvements and also data improvements. When it came to data improvements, some examples include, getting rid of duplicate titles, normalizing the units of measure, quickly figuring out what content was missing, especially brand images and things like that, and filling in for those. Improving the taxonomy and things like that, and also BigCommerce integration requires us to construct and combine rich descriptions into one field and then unpack it on the BigCommerce site. So there's some rules and things like that that were also implemented to simplify this whole process. So through a combination of our efforts, we were able to solve for these challenges. And a big part of the current infrastructure is obviously BigCommerce, right? I think it is going to help Richmond market and sell more in the future. So I'd like to turn it over to James Lee from BigCommerce to speak about the platform and how it helps merchants.
Sure. Thank you, Vic. Appreciate it. Real quickly, I think just to speak to BigCommerce and where we fit into this piece, I'd like to just walk through a few key items. I mean, primarily, we are an open SaaS platform that are really set up for all stages of growth. For companies that can range from small mom and pop stores selling candy in Austin, Texas, or larger global implementations with B2B focuses or otherwise. So you've got a very large market of folks that are good fits for BigCommerce. As mentioned, open SaaS is a big piece that I'll talk to here in a minute. Enterprise ready if you need it. Focused on really established businesses. So we often work, with not maybe digitally native fully, but, established businesses that are looking to move into e-com. Can handle both direct to consumer with B2C as well as B2B, and also take a very partner-centric approach. And I think kind of Vic spoke to this as an example. The Akeneo connector that's being leveraged here was built by the StrikeTru team, and that's available in our app marketplace. So we really like to make sure that the platform's as flexible as it can be, and that both our merchants as well as our agency partners are able to make the decisions that make sense for their businesses. So let's hop into some of the key pillars of BigCommerce. So to talk about, again, open source versus cloud-based, I think it's important to share where BigCommerce fits in this. Levi mentioned, coming from Magento, which is obviously an open source platform, and there are a lot of benefits with those types of platforms. They're extraordinarily flexible. But as Levi mentioned, you can also have a lot of responsibility with that, from managing your hosting to site upgrades and maintenance. And so that can become a very large portion of what you're spending your time doing versus selling products, particularly if you don't have a well-established IT team. And in answer to that, there are a lot of options out there for purely SaaS plays or pure cloud-based platforms that kind of help keep you from needing to manage things like hosting and upgrading, but they can be very restrictive because they're ultimately locked down. And so if we click once, BigCommerce has moved towards this open SaaS philosophy. So we're still very much a SaaS platforms with the benefits of not having to manage hosting or ongoing maintenance upgrades or PCI compliance in the checkout, with very user-friendly tooling that makes it easy for nearly anybody to use it. But we are also very open via API, which at 98% open today, which allows our great agency partners like Vic and StrikeTru to build very deep connectors into third-party platforms to make e-commerce as smooth and as automated as possible. And this move to being directly in the center and bridging those gaps between the extremes is really working, both from a B2B perspective as well as a B2C. So from Forrester to Gartner, IDC, the awards over the last few years have been great, and so I think we're moving in a really solid direction. So some of the key pillars that you can expect with BigCommerce, again, our mission is to help merchants sell more at every stage of growth, and those key pillars are around total cost of ownership, performance, and growth. So if we think about the total cost of ownership perspective, you can expect as a merchant predictable and flat rate pricing and plans without surprise that kind of navigate across the spectrum, again, from small businesses to enterprise. Implementations are often very quick. I think on average, we're at about 3 months. I think Vic also mentioned it was about roughly 4 getting set up with Levi, but that's about right. And also with this total cost of ownership or less, the cost of doing those ongoing upgrades for the platform or having to pay additional for new features that are coming across can really start to add up over time. So total cost of ownership is a real key pillar when thinking about BigCommerce. The other would be about powerful performance. So oftentimes, if it's a SaaS platform, you may think, oh, that it's not enterprise ready. But we do have industry-leading uptime of 99.99%, backed by SLAs. You have unlimited API calls when you're on an enterprise-level plan, which allows for deep connections like PIMs or to a PIM like Akeneo, or potentially even an order management system. Or if you're even wanting to go headless and not use our native storefront, you can do that as well. So performance is very key. And then finally, around growth. So, we want to be able to enable our merchants to grow. And so feature-rich technology that's simple for users to navigate, creating and managing products, new products or categories, custom fields. I think Vic had mentioned, they're leveraging custom fields as well as about 1,000 attributes that are actually coming over from the PIM that are attached to these products to really help keep all of the data together. So really powerful tooling. Also, from the growth perspective, and this is kind of back to best of breed, we have a whole series of third-party applications that are available in our marketplace. Vic and StrikeTru have created one of those, which is an Akeneo connector, which is leveraged quite regularly. But we have well over 1,000 apps that can really help drive the functionality beyond what's fully native, if and when that case arises. And then finally, again, for the growth side, having 100 plus API endpoints and 98% of the platform open really does make it very realistic to start with BigCommerce and hopefully, somewhere around 80 to 85 or more % of your use cases are met fully just by native functionality, but you also then have the flexibility to build on top of to meet your needs. One final piece to chat about specifically because, Levi is in that B2B space. They do have our B2B edition. I don't believe these features are being used today, but are kind of on the roadmap for the team to grow into and take advantage of down the road. But with this B2B edition, BigCommerce also can bring to the table corporate account management, shopping lists and quoting, buying again functionality shared across a company. There's invoice portal, payment method and visibility control. So a lot of the key and specific features that are required in B2B today. So we're excited to have Levi and team on board and really excited to see where things go down the line.
Thank you, James. As an integrator, as an agency that has worked on the BigCommerce platform, developing connectors, I can say that it's been pretty easy. There's a lot of documentation available on how to integrate with BigCommerce, and as we were developing our connector, we were able to be set up quickly with a trial store, and there was great support available from BigCommerce, but we hardly had to use it because the documentation was so good, and we were able to build our connector without leaning on BigCommerce too much. But whenever we needed them, they were definitely very available. So that was great. Thank you for that. So we'll talk about the overall results. I'll invite Levi to maybe give his perspective, and then I'll add my comments on that. Levi, if you may, please.
Sure. Thank you, Vic. As I'd mentioned early on, the early results for us are good, especially when you measure it against having to support the technology of a web presence. Most of the burden fell on me at our company, and we did have a very good contractor through the years early on that did move us through some various platforms, Magento being the last one. But as it turned out for us, Magento, while it had all the options, as James had mentioned, and flexibility that you could have as a company, you also really need to have a strong IT team if you're going to support something like that, and that's something we did not have. But what we have now is a manageable web deployment with Akeneo that is managed outside of our company. StrikeTru manages Akeneo for us, and then BigCommerce obviously manages their instance or our instance of the store, their online, our B2B online store. And so the overhead of having to see about the technology is really gone, and that's a very good result because it allows me now as a company owner to look to other features that I think a customer base would adopt quite easily. And James mentioned a few of those. Some of the plugins and alternative pieces of software that can be used with BigCommerce are exciting for us because the shopping list feature, for example, or trying to offer customers their particular price if they're on their own price matrix. That's sort of a trick we haven't been able to really pull off very successfully yet. The scale is very expandable, so that we currently have about 15,000 products on the web, but through a web content subscription we have that easily could go up to 50 or 100,000 products if we could manage those. And the Akeneo has that sort of scalability. So does BigCommerce. BigCommerce has a lot of features built in native to the platform that are pretty cool, actually, for us. Abandoned carts, for example, it reminds customers automatically that they've abandoned the cart, and possibly gives them an opportunity to turn over an order. A lot of front end marketing, good looking features that give the store a solid presence for customers is what we're enjoying at this point. And I look forward, though it's still very young in the process, as I mentioned earlier. I feel like we've got a new lease on life with with a product that allows me to focus my energies more on marketing and customer recruitment and engagement. And therefore, for a small business like mine, 50 people, 3 branches, it's a good, really solid, I think, solution. Though we've had very good support in the past to move us through different web platforms, this one seems to me like one that will be a long-term solution for us, and I would recommend that move if you're thinking about it. And at some point here, when we were able to answer questions, maybe you'd have some to that end. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Levi. And I'll just add some more detail to the benefits that you mentioned. I think in terms of improved e-commerce environment, obviously compared to the past site, the UI UX is improved, and the checkout process it's more streamlined. There's some more features like abandoned cart email, so that go out that are sort of out of the box. When it comes to managing the brands that Levi is selling products for, or the content, or ensuring latest pricing and availability information is available on the web, all of those are improvements compared to the past. And in terms of improved data management tools, obviously there is PIM, which especially if you have a large catalog and if you have a lot of data you're onboarding, and if you're trying to sell through your web and other channels, it becomes a critical tool. So that's there. And then even if you subscribe to data or source data from multiple sources, the process of onboarding them is simplified if you have connectors. So in this particular case, we have a connector that synchronizes data from PIM to BigCommerce. We also used a connector to onboard some content from affiliated distributors. That's an upcoming project. So that connector will simplify that process of onboarding large sets of data. And there's also some automations we built in, at the product data level, which essentially eliminates some repetitive work. In terms of support, I think Levi is now able to, call in BigCommerce, get support anytime. That was a challenge in the past. And overall, there's more work that's being done that can be done in-house. And Levi is planning on leveraging some more of his team members to start doing more data and e-commerce stuff. So I just wanted to add that detail. Now, in terms of how this applies to other companies, if they're trying to do something similar, or trying to improve their e-commerce environments, what are some best practices there, right? And this is, these are best practices that apply not only to small and medium businesses, but also to large enterprises. In our experience working with companies of all sizes, what we know is that to really do well in a digital-first economy, you need to adopt modern technology tools. You need to automate the mundane, repetitive tasks, and then for a solid, digitization program or digital transformation program, you absolutely must centralize all your product data, so you have a trusted source of data that can be effectively managed and, more importantly, shared with your customers and partners. And I think a lot of us know that bad data has real costs to the business. So improving data quality, making it consistent and high quality is sort of table stakes for effective e-commerce today. So those are broad best practices, but more importantly, at the implementation level, if you're going through a replatforming project or a product content management deployment, PIM system deployment, for example, you need to definitely have a detailed migration plan. There's a lot of moving parts, and to minimize your risk, have a detailed migration plan. Another important thing is oftentimes we run into issues when there's not enough resources available on the client side, and sometimes on the agency side. So that's something you have to account for. Make sure that there's enough availability from the client resources, more importantly. And also, like I was saying, approach things in a phased manner. There's a lot of temptation to add a lot of improvements at the same time that you're replatforming. My recommendation would be to migrate first, focus on the migration, minimize the moving parts, and then in a later phase, bake in enhancements. So this would help you avoid any delayed projects or stalled projects, which we run into sometimes. And data is, anytime you're migrating from one platform to another, you're looking at different data structures in those systems, and the conversion or migration process often does require not only data restructuring, but also potentially cleansing. So whatever those data issues are that can derail your migrations, the effort needs to be allocated to take care of those. And, like most software projects, right, I think you would want to test all of these very thoroughly, have a proper test plan, and, all elements of the implementation, the UI, UX, the data component, the SEO aspects of the site, and the integrations. There's a lot of things there to test for thoroughly to avoid any surprises or bad migrations. And like with any new system deployment, there is a huge change that's being imposed on the company that's implementing it. There are new systems, and with those new systems come new processes that replace old processes, and training the users adequately is an important component of the project to make it successful. And finally, if you are migrating e-commerce platforms, data, and migrating data is often one of the most complex challenges there. And if you have a PIM that simplifies it, and not only the current migration, but if you were to re-platform again in the future, having a PIM system that centralizes all your data simplifies that overall process and gives you that freedom to move to a new platform in case your needs outgrow your current platform. So with that said, Dolan, will turn it over to you for maybe the Q&A session.
Sounds great, Vic. Thank you. Thank you, Vic and Levi and James, for your thoughts today. As Vic was mentioning, let's open it up to our Q&A segment. So if you have a question, if you haven't already done so, feel free, everyone, in the Q&A box to post your question. We'll do our best to actually get to as many as possible with the time we have left, and we're doing good on time. So let's take a look at some of these questions that we've received. So the first one that's come in was, which direct sale channel has been most surprising to Richmond Supply, and which has been most and least promising in 2022? Levi, would you like to take that one?
I can give you a limited answer based on our experience, and I suppose just from a web standpoint at all, a surprising, I guess, element of having a web presence is getting orders or interest from places you'd never suspected. We do business primarily in the United States. We do get inquiries from overseas, but to receive an order from we're in Georgia, so if you receive an order from California or Nevada or New York or any place like that we ordinarily had not done any business with, and for a customer finding you through a Google search or something like that, and then placing an order, it was a good surprise. And I guess it was one that we really hadn't thought hard about a web deployment it's not, if you build it, they will come. It's not really like that. For us, it hasn't been, at least. Our industry, as I said, has been a little slow to adopt web transactions. But at this point, with a lot of the technology overhead removed from my plate, I think we can focus on marketing and trying to draw customers in, which is something we really haven't had the time, energy, and resources to do in the past. And so I'm hoping the next surprise is going to be to find new customers easier to engage with because of a solid web platform we're on now, and finding ways to convert those customers into permanent long-term customers.
Thank you, Levi. Okay, our next question. Please explain to fasten distributors and manufacturers why having good data is crucial to their digital transformation, and furthermore, how it affects their customer journey. Vic, appreciate if you can take this one.
Sure, yeah. I think I'm no expert on the fastener industry per se, but Levi had earlier tipped me off to the fact that in the fastener industry, traceability is an important trend, and I can think of other trends that probably affect that industry, and I'll speak to that. And the fact is, every industry is digitizing, their business for multiple reasons, right? They're responding to shifting customer preferences, to comply with regulations, to lower their operating costs, and to grow their sales. And the key to a successful digital transformation program in any industry, right, is master data management, which basically means you need to establish a central source of trusted data that can be shared easily with your multiple sales and marketing channels. And then the other aspect, which we don't have much to do with, is analytics, right? But master data management is definitely one of the two key foundational elements of a successful digital transformation program. In case of product data, including in the fastener industry, right? This data includes identifiers and titles and descriptions, features and specs and product sheets, et cetera, right? In many companies, there is research that indicates workers waste a lot of time searching for product data and also dealing with the negative effects or costs of bad data. So, and I believe the fastener industry would also be affected by these issues. And it seems like, as I was mentioning, traceability is an important requirement in some industries like aerospace and defense, where fasteners are used in large numbers. Those kinds of customers, I guess, need to be able to track parts through every stage of the supply chain, all the way back to the distributors and to the original manufacturer for safety and recall reasons. And I also was researching this a little bit, and I read that detailed product information and installation documents are becoming mandatory in sectors like construction, where precision and safety are critical. Yet another trend I read about was that there's a looming shortage of highly skilled labor in the fastener industry. And so, proper data and detailed documentation, including assembly instructions and installation instructions, things like that will be important to train and support the newer workers. Not all the workers are going to be experts like it used to be. So I'm assuming, responding to all these trends and possibly other trends requires the industry to have solid data that can be trusted and shared with not only workers, customers, but also the partners. And on top of that, companies also, it's worth mentioning that not only is good data important, but robust data management tools to really collect all that data, enrich it, govern it, and share it and archive it are also important.
Okay, thanks, Vic. The next question I'll punt to James. So James, question around ROI. How can we estimate ROI of a replatforming project in advance to help us gain executive approval?
Yeah, thanks for that one. I think on our side, I'm sure there are a ton of account executives that would love to hop on a call and discuss ROI for BigCommerce. And I think that maybe parts of that answer is that, we do a very, I would say, hands-on sales cycle. And and work very closely with merchants who are evaluating the platform to make sure that one, it's going to be a great fit, but also help to build that use case. I think off the top of my head, some of the things that we can do is help plan around, funding the cost of the project through potentially several factors, whether that's increasing your share of wallet by having a markedly better and higher converting site, uplift in incremental revenue, especially things, like leveraging a PIM and making sure that the product content is optimized and available and listed. It may also take the form of expanding into omni-channel sales, particularly from, BigCommerce's perspective, whether that's listing products on Google Shopping or Facebook, Instagram for social selling, or even into a point of sale system. So I think there's a lot to be discussed there, but we're certainly open to and very regularly contribute and work with prospective merchants on approaching and building that business case.
Great, thank you, James. Okay, another question that just came in. Why was a separate third-party PIM necessary? Why not use whatever PIM tool is in BigCommerce? That sounds like it would add expense and integration complexity. So I'll open this up to any and all or three of y'all.
All right. I can certainly speak to that. This is Vic, but Levi, you had decided to go for a PIM early on, right? Would you like to give your perspective?
Sure. We looked at and I try to reflect on our experience in the past with the PIM. As Vic mentioned, we did have a content management tool early on, and part of the reason to go with that was not just for the internet, and in some ways it wasn't primarily because of the internet. It was because of marketing information and being able to use a desktop publishing tool to bring content across to publish in paper format. This is way back when catalogs were the thing. Now a website is, but one of the main drivers to us trying to build out that content development tool was for desktop publishing and marketing data. And as time went on, really, we discovered that tool could be used also to fuel our website and port that information over to a website. James mentioned the fact that a good content development tool can be used to fuel a number of different marketing channels, whether it be Amazon or Google stores or eBay or whatever. You can use all of that content within the PIM to build out those type sites. So that gives you a level of efficiency that is hard to get in other ways. I'm really not familiar with BigCommerce's content management, with the exception of what's within the BigCommerce tool right now. I think Akeneo for us gives a lot of flexibility in terms of not only in terms of attributes, but also the taxonomy and the hierarchy of families of products, filterable attributes, plenty of things probably that we don't use at this point in Akeneo are available. I think it's a powerful tool, and with a good connector like Vic and team have built out for BigCommerce, they work well together. And I really didn't consider anything but staying with our Akeneo PIM, which is also something that we can train our in-house staff to use. It's easy enough to train somebody pretty quickly on how to maintain your content, and that's important for us, maintaining content.
Yeah, I mean,
thank you.
Yeah,
sorry, Vic, go ahead.
I would just like to add that there's a lot of features in the e-commerce systems like BigCommerce, but one thing that they're not, in our experience, is they're not good data management tools, right? So if you have a large catalog, or if you have a lot of attributes you're managing, and those are ever increasing, right? Most companies are chasing higher SKU counts and higher attribute counts so that they can deliver better customer experiences, right? They want to improve the search and selection processes online. And for all of those reasons, right, you'll quickly run into limitations on e-commerce platforms. And it's not just BigCommerce, right? We work with other platforms also. So, and there's a lot of research that also points to this, right? E-commerce is essentially disrupting every industry, and the conversion online is largely a factor of the navigation and exploration tools you provide online, and a lot of that is directly proportional to how good your data is. Like, you need a lot of granular attributes, lots and lots of them, good categorization structures, cross-sell, upsell relationships, recommendations, things like that, to drive those superior customer experiences that lead to conversion. And all of that data is best managed in a PIM system, and that's why there's a special category of software called PIM to really drive e-commerce results, right? So that's, and there's other reasons, but the bottom line is product data affects most of your KPIs. And so it is very important to manage that properly, make it efficient, and like Levi was alluding to, make it easy to outsource it. If you're doing more content efforts, you want to be able to hire some people outside your company and do it quick. Trying to do that in an e-commerce system or an ERP system, which is your transactional system, is kind of a difficult thing. It could affect the uptime of your website, especially if you're dealing with large catalogs. So I'll leave it there.
So this next one, Vic, to add to the PIM discussion, do you need to format the product files you get from vendors, or can the PIM take the product files as is and transform them into the appropriate fields in the PIM?
Because typically companies deal with multiple vendors, and because the formats of the files are going to be different from vendor to another, there is a need to normalize the data and map it to sort of the common data model that you set up in the PIM. So unless you're dealing with one vendor and your PIM data structures match your incoming vendor data structures, right, which is usually not the case, there will be some formatting that is required. But having said that, the process of onboarding data from multiple sources, again, is simplified quite a bit, because PIM has those kinds of capabilities that make it easy to do that, to aggregate a lot of data. And whereas an ERP system or even an e-commerce system will struggle to do the same, right, efficiently.
Okay, great. So let's take another one. Vic mentioned the critical role the PIM system plays in e-commerce migration. Can an ERP system also serve as the PIM? And if so, what experiences have you had where the ERP actually fulfilled the role of the PIM?
Okay. Again, this is ERP is not a PIM, and but in a lot of cases that is serving as the PIM until the companies realize that it's very painful and it's underserving their needs, especially because digital requires a lot of marketing content and a lot of nimbleness around this, and a very protected system like ERP is not the right place to manage all the product data. And ERPs usually they're heavily guarded systems. On the web today, you need lots and lots of attributes because customers are demanding it, and trying to add all those attributes to the ERP in many cases is a non-starter. So you end up managing a whole bunch of spreadsheets outside the ERP to support your web content efforts. And that also quickly becomes inefficient because Excel sheets are not great for large catalogs or large sets of attributes. And that's where really a PIM comes in. And in my experience, if an ERP has fulfilled the role of a PIM, it's typically places where they are having a limited set of attributes that they're syncing to the web, which is not the best practice. But to give you an idea of the scale, ERP typically manages the supply chain attributes, the titles and descriptions and identifiers, whereas all the marketing content is and some other content is typically managed in the PIM. In typical implementations, ERP might be providing us 10 attributes of product data, whereas in the PIM, we might run into hundreds. In the case of Richmond, because of the large number of categories they have, we have close to 1,000 product data attributes, and it's simply impossible to do anything like that in the ERP.
Okay, thanks, Vic. So looking at the time, everyone, we have a minute left. So what we'll do is, for those that need to jump off, I want to thank you for attending today's session, and you'll receive a copy of this recording along with a brief evaluation by the end of the week. Just take a few minutes, please, to complete the brief evaluation. Your feedback will help us shape future sessions. For those that can stay on, we'll continue just a few minutes longer to address the other questions that have come through. But for those that need to jump off, thank you again for your attendance today, and stay tuned for our next quarterly session that we'll be having in Q3. Look out for details on our newsletter, our website, and social media postings, and please be sure to follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. In addition, we have our Connect with the Experts session on MDM and data governance on May 25th, so stay tuned for details in our upcoming newsletter. So for those that can continue to be with us for the next few minutes, we'll address the couple of questions that have come through. So the next one that we have is, how do you manage raw material planning and managing multiple manufacturing locations?
I'll take a stab at it. So it's, I would say it's outside the realm of a PIM system or probably even an e-commerce system. PIM is usually for commercial product data, right? You're talking about finished products and all the information you need to merchandise and sell it. And that's really commercial product data, and that's what's managed in the PIM and goes to the e-commerce website. I think when it comes to raw material planning and manufacturing or managing multiple manufacturing locations, that's more about production planning. And I believe a PLM system might be more of an appropriate tool for that, a product lifecycle management system. But don't quote me on that. I'm not an expert on those systems either, but I do know that PIM is not the place to manage those.
Thanks, Vic. There's a general comment in terms of special interest. And I know James spoke about this earlier in our session around our Akeneo connector to BigCommerce. So, this comment is around just any other further insights that you can give around connectors and PIM and the importance.
Any other insights for connectors? I would say they are, one, important, just in maintaining for both maintaining consistent data that's available from one platform to another, but also removing as often as possible the manual process around getting data from one potential platform to another. So, as an example, BigCommerce, has out of the box the ability to upload a CSV file to upload your products, but obviously that's can be error prone. Keeping data in a CSV file is probably not best. So, having a PIM like Akeneo be able to send that data on a regular basis, on an automated basis, without being as error prone, is really important. So I think connectors can be hugely beneficial across the board, and whether that's to a PIM or getting data from an ERP, or sending information like orders from BigCommerce to a third-party order management platform if you need to use one. So that would be my thought there. I think it's also important that maybe the connector that you're evaluating is heavily vetted. And is known to be reliable. I think one of the things BigCommerce does that's great is, in our app ecosystem, we very heavily vet the connectors that are available there. So I think that you'll find that they're reliable, and Vic can speak to that because his team went through the process of having that connector verified before it's able to be listed.
Indeed,
Vic,
yes.
yeah, if you could chime in around the multiple connectors that StrikeTru offers.
Sure, yeah. So we, we're very focused in terms of what we do. We're focused on content and commerce services, and we deal with a few different popular platforms that we specialize in the categories of product information management. Akinio is one of them. In the category of digital asset management, we work with Widen and Media Valley there. And then obviously, very importantly, e-commerce platforms, where BigCommerce is one of our favorite ones. And there's other ones like Shopify and Magento and Salesforce Commerce Cloud. So over time we've done a lot of projects, and a lot of times we've built custom integrations. And out of those experiences, we've now developed connectors between DAM and PIM, and between PIM and e-commerce systems. And they're all listed on our website. And our goal is to really continue to build more connectors to simplify the process of integrating best-of-breed solutions and not worry about the integration complexity or costs involved.
Great, thank you. Last question, and Vic, I'll punt this to you. What is the typical increase in catalog size, number of products after implementing a PIM?
Yeah, this one depends on the company's goals. But once you have a PIM, you now have a solid and scalable data management infrastructure. So I've seen, I'll quote you some examples of what I've seen personally. One of our clients was a furniture retailer. They had about 6,000 products. And even by the time we launched PIM, he had already doubled his SKU count, because even during testing, he figured out that he could do so much with the PIM that he doubled the SKU count. We have other customers where another furniture retailer, initially they had about 60,000 SKUs. And I think about a year and a half, 2 years after deploying PIM, the last time I checked, they doubled that SKU count. There was another consumer electronics company. They probably had 20, 25,000 SKUs, and right around the time they went live with PIM, or shortly after that, we helped them onboard another 12,000 SKUs. So, and these are just some anecdotes. I mean, we've tested the PIM system we work with, like Akinio. It can handle 1 million SKUs or more. So what you would need is really the budget to onboard new SKUs, either to internal resources or external resources, and also make sure that they're also set up in your ERP system, which is typically a slightly separate process. And once you do that, then synchronizing that to your e-commerce system, especially if you have a connector, is sort of an afterthought. But that's the key point there to remember. A PIM essentially helps you scale your content management efforts. The name of the game, if you're going after a PIM, is to increase your SKU count or assortment, right, by going after more suppliers and managing them carefully. And then on the other side, increasing the number of sales channels you want to list and sell your products on.
Thanks, Vic. Well, I want to thank everyone again for staying on longer. I know we went past time, but hopefully you got some good insights today from our discussion. I want to thank Levi from Richmond Supply, our client, and of course, our co-sponsors, BigCommerce, and James representing BigCommerce, and others on the call. Thank you all today for a great discussion. As noted earlier, this session will be sent to all of you as participants and those who registered. And please do take a few minutes to complete our brief survey. So until next time, everyone, thank you and have a wonderful day or evening.